Welcome back to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. All right, this segment we're going to talk to John Vandermosten. He is the lead biotech research analyst for biotechnology research analyst for Zacks.com. All right, John, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Michael.
All right, we're also going to invite Ed Baxter in because he's got a certain joie de vivre, if you say, for drilling down to the heart of the questions here that from an investment banker point. All right, what did you bring to us today? What are we talking about first? I think you want to talk about ADFs and what are they, right?
That's correct. That's correct. So ADFs are really relevant right now. I'm sure none of us have missed the big news about the opioid epidemic in the United States. Just last week, the president made it a national public health emergency, which brought extra attention to it. The president also put together a commission back in March, which is looking at ways to solve the problem. So there are many ways to do it. The commission itself has recommended a few approaches, such as better enforcement, better education, and having people put in programs where they can get the help that they need. There's also other approaches that can be done as well, and one of these is abuse deterrent formulations, or ADFs.
Okay. Tell us what that is.
Sure. So an ADF is basically a way to formulate a drug so that it deters abuse, right? So a lot of times drugs are abused through either crushing them and then you snort the powder. I mean, we've all seen that in movies. Or you could also liquefy it in some manner and then inject it. And actually that's the worst, because not only do you have the problem from overdosing from injection, but you also have the problem of dirty needles and what can come about from that. So it's a big problem, and if you can address it through different formulation of a tablet, then that's a great way to approach it and take care of that side. And that's not solving some of the other issues that are out there. Obviously, there's other ways to approach that, but it does solve.
It helps.
It does. It does.
All right. Now, why are they such a big part of the market? Aside from the obvious, they're trying to solve the problem of drug abuse through this. But walk us down that.
Sure. So the opioid market is immense. I mean, some estimates see it from, I think, $25 to $40 billion in size, and right now ADFs are actually a very small portion of that. They're less than 2%. I mean, it's something that's only come about over the last few years.
I get it.
Sure. So it's a growth opportunity, because right now I think just in morphine in that category, over 98% of the medicine is not abuse deterrent. So you could crush it or liquefy it and abuse it. So what companies like Eaglet, which is one company I cover,
right, or
Pfizer, which probably a lot of people know, they have their own product out there that tries to deter abuse. It's able to prevent it from being crushed, prevent it from being liquefied and abused.
A lot of market to grow. Ed, any questions?
Well, the one thing that stands out, obviously, you have a pretty big problem. What would you say was the main catalyst for this explosion in opioid use?
Right. So, well, that's a pretty complex, or it's a complex question. It goes back quite a long way. I think probably 15, 20 years ago, there was research done that showed that Americans weren't getting the pain relief they need. I think one of the statistics out there is that 100 million Americans have pain, and they need to get it treated. And opioids are an inexpensive and effective way to do it. If you have severe pain, sometimes an aspirin or a Aleve isn't enough, and you need something a little bit stronger. And they fit that need. However, there's also the downside to using opioids, and that they're addictive, especially in some people. And with that problem, we've had a growth in the opioid epidemic.
Let me jump in there. The ADFs, obviously, it's a growth market in the biotechnology sector. What about the approval rate? I mean, how many of these ADFs are really getting approved these days?
Sure. So right now there are 8 that are approved. There are only just a few that are out there that are actually generating revenues.
Wow. It's such a huge problem, and it's such a simple solution. Of course, it's probably not simple when it comes to making it, but that's
Sure.
only 8?
Correct. There's only 8. Pfizer has probably the best known product, Embeda, and that's an agonist-antagonist type of ADF, where if you try to crush it, the agonist and antagonist will counteract each other, and it'll make it inert. And also, this drug as well. If you try to liquefy it, it will turn into a gel, and you can't do that either. So that's one of the biggest ones. The company that I'm most familiar with, Eaglet, they have another product which is called Aramo, and this is very hard to crush. You can't crush it to turn it into something so you can snort it, or if you try to liquefy it, it will also turn into a gel, so you can't put it in the syringe. So you can't abuse it in that manner. You can still take it orally like you normally would, but a lot of the problems that come from abuse are from these alternate methods of using it.
What are some of the companies that commercialize ADFs? You mentioned Pfizer. Right?
Sure. So there's the Pfizer is probably the best known. I've got a list here of about 10 different names that are involved in the space, even though there are only eight ADFs that are approved as ADFs. But Teva, and I'm sure we've all heard of that. Nectar Therapeutics, Zogenix, Collegium, and actually Collegium just had one of their products picked up by one of the major payers out there, and they have an ADF as well. So, but what this means is that there's a lot more awareness of ADFs and kind of what they can do, and then of course Eaglet, back in the earlier part of the year, they had their Aramo product approved.
Let's talk about Eaglet. I mean, that's the one that you've chosen to analyze here. We've got about a minute left. I want you to give us the reason why you like it so much.
Sure. So this is more of a pure play on the ADF market. I mean, if you like Pfizer's and Beta, you're not gonna get much exposure because it's such a huge company. But there are a number of reasons why Eaglet has a good position right now. They're very low penetrated right now. They've just launched their products. Their revenues right now are quite small, but they've been growing. In the latest quarter, they had, I think, over an 80% growth rate. And again, this is off a very small base, but they have their sales force in place, and they've increased their focus on the products that they have right now in the market. So we should expect to see that growth rate continue over the next several years.
Well put. John, thanks for being a guest on the show. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll have you back. John Vandermosten, CFA, Biotechnology Analyst at Zacks.com. You've been listening to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. This segment is brought to you by Tycon Partners.